So feel free to call 234-1441 with your questions. The program is repeated at 7:30 p.m. Let me start by thanking Lou, Bev, Edie, and the KBBG team for allowing us this opportunity to be with you to help answer your credit and debt questions. Today we're answering questions that have been directed to us and hopefully answer questions you call in. We're here to give you the information you want. Many people have a lot of credit questions or debt questions. They don't know who to ask, they don't know what to ask, so they just don't ask. And that's the worst thing you can do. You need to find the answers at the time or before you really need to feel that you have problems. Call 234-1441 and ask questions or give opinions on credit topics, including budgets and debt-related issues. There are many aspects of credit. When we graduate from high school, get our first job, even if we have a job as a teenager, we have money in our hands, and the question is, what are we going to do with our money? Seldom do we stop and think what is needed with our money, especially if we're in high school, is what do we want to do with our money? That is the main thing people get mixed up on in adult life. They get their wants and their needs second. And that causes eviction, it causes foreclosures, it causes arrests for theft, etc. Just knowing the difference between your want and your need can save you many years of pain and lots of toil and trouble. So if you think about your money, let's think about first you and your money. What does it mean to you? Is your money something that you always need for something, or is it something you use for a goal? Cindy, what do you tell people about goal setting?
Well, goal settings are specifically for what you want. You have to set a budget for your needs. You've got monthly expenses. They're fixed, flexible, periodic. Some happen every month, the same amount. Some happen every month, but not the same amount. And then some happen once every 3 months, 6 months, or once a year even. But you've got to plan on those expenses. That's why it's so important to set a budget. But your goal is what you're going to save for something that you want. And it can be any amount. You kind of have to figure it as like with a money value, meaning, if I have a goal of getting a brand new TV, that TV is going to cost me $395. So I'm going to save as a goal to get a TV at $395. So you may not be able to save, 10% of your income. You may not be able to save even 5%, but you need to save something first. Every time you get paid, you pay yourself. That's money, that you have to not only for emergencies, but for your goals.
I have talked to young people who are interested in renting an apartment, and they all say, I just got my first job, but I really like this apartment. Well, that's a real problem, because if you've never paid on an apartment before, you don't understand the costs of it, and you've never had a job before, you're going to have to do some planning and some budgeting before that can be a reality. That can be a goal, but it's going to have to be a little bit down the ways.
Right, because, okay, you rent an apartment, but then what about the utilities? You have to have electricity, water, heat, and then do you want any type of communication? Like, are you going to have a phone, the internet, cable? Those all are additional expenses that if you don't plan for them, you're going to find yourself in a bind every month.
And when you get that cell phone, and I'm sure you will because you don't have to have a landline anymore, be careful of the wonderful sales techniques. I mean, they will convince you you need to have this upgraded line, more most expensive, all this and that. And if you do that, guaranteed within a couple of months, you'll have no phone line operating at all, but you'll owe them 2 months' worth of phone use.
Plus possibly an early termination fee.
Yes.
So, you know, first and foremost, do you need all of that? I mean, will you use it? You know, if the answer is yes, then that may be something that you can reconsider. But the first thing I tell anybody that's telling me that they're looking for, you know, a new phone line or cable provider or whatever, is shop around. You know, these companies, yes, their prices are pretty similar for most of their, but they have sales, they have bargains where they can give you something, but you have to remember when they give you a bargain, that bargain's gonna end. So you need to plan in the future how you're gonna handle that amount of money that you have to pay them every month. So there's a lot of things to remember and consider when you do something like that.
And read the contracts, ask questions. If you think it's too good to be true, it probably is. But ask and find out what their answers are and write them down. They don't want to have somebody come back on them because so-and-so told them this, but here's the proof they told them. They don't want that. It's better off for them if it's their word against yours, because they're going to be expected to be the ones who are right, not you.
And if you know what's in your contract, then Karen, you can make decisions as to whether or not you actually need that product or service. Because once you read the contract and know what it all entails, you may decide differently.
Yes. And so when you go to purchase things, make sure that it's something that you need and that you want. Just this last weekend, I went in my closet. I figured it's about time to make sure I know exactly where I have things. I'm finding things I forgot I even bought. And I found something of my granddaughter's that she got a year ago and has never worn. Those are the sort of things that that you want to avoid. And the only way you can avoid them is by knowing what you have and keeping track of it. Line 3. There's a call on line 3. Let's see what they have to say. Good morning, this is Karen. How can I help you?
Hi, I have a question. I've gotten a month behind on my mortgage payments, and I need to know what I should do.
Are you communicating with your lender?
No, I've kind of been avoiding their calls and letters because I don't really know what to tell them.
Okay, just a second. Cindy, you want to take this? You've handled mortgages for some time.
Well, the first question I would ask is, do you want to keep your home? Is it your intent to be able to stay there?
I'd like to, but I'm on disability through work, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to afford to.
Okay. Well, when she asked about, you know, communicating with your lender, what type of, you said you applied for disability? Is that what you said?
Well, I'm on disability through work, but I don't know if I'll be able to go back to work.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'm not sure what my income.
All right. Have you applied for any type of disability through like Social Security yet? If your doctor doesn't think you're gonna go back to work, correct?
Yeah, I did apply, but I haven't heard anything yet.
So you haven't had a hearing yet with them, correct? You haven't had a hearing with Social Security yet?
No.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a couple questions here then. Do you have any idea what the value of your home is?
I guess probably about maybe 90,000.
All right. And what do you think you owe yet on your home?
Probably about that, or maybe a little bit more. I think my statement shows about 105,000.
Okay. So you don't really think that you have like equity in the home that if you sold it, you could make money, pay off your debts, do whatever you needed to do, correct? So you're kind of looking at your options, and obviously always the best option is to get the payment current and keep it current. You know, by just simply making it a priority that once you put food on your table, that's the first payment that you make. But communicating with your lender is the most important thing that you can do. You can apply to your lender for any type of a workout option that is available through them. And they have such things as modifications, forbearances, short sales, or deed in lieu. Now, a couple of those allow you to keep your home and stay there, and a couple you're not able to. But the most common misconception about, or that people make, is believing that their lender owns their loan. Most often, the lender is a servicing agent for the investor. All right, so you want to call your lender first and find out, do they own your loan? Or is there an investor like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, or any private investor whose money is actually at risk? So, because the lender services the loan for the investor, and they're going to follow the investor's guidelines for any type of workout option or anything that they offer you or do for you. Because the investor's already set up all the guidelines probably before any of us were ever born, and the lender knows exactly what they can and cannot do. So ask your lender what options are available through the investor in your situation. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
I was just gonna say, once you feel that you've done everything you could, you call the office and set up an appointment to sit down and talk to Cindy to see if she can come up with any other answers during this time that you're waiting to hear from your lender.
And that is so true, because what we're gonna do is we're going to, so many people, because it is a very involved process, get overwhelmed immediately because the lender has to have specific information from you. And when they come back to you and say, you have to provide us this, you have to provide us this, you have to show this, this, and this, they're immediately like, oh, I can't do this, I cannot do it, I can't cope with it. We'll do that for you. We will work directly with the lender. And basically, we've been very successful in getting modifications, forbearances, whatever the options are available that the lender has available to you. Now, obviously, we can't guarantee anything, but we take all of the stress factor virtually away from you, because we will work directly with the lender. Now, as long as you can provide us with the information that we are required to send to that lender, we will take care of everything virtually for you. But just for an example, possibly the lender is able to modify your loan. That means normally that they can possibly lower the interest rate, they can put the delinquent amount that you owe onto the back of your existing principal balance or into your existing principal balance, and even possibly extend the term. Depending on your situation, you were talking about being on disabled, you're not sure if you're gonna go back to work, that you may be on, even SSDI in the future, something like that. The lender may offer you what is called a forbearance agreement until you know what your situation is actually going to be or how it's going to be resolved, what the end product per se is going to be. So they may offer you to send in like a reduced payment amount, or even no payments. But that is, again, they're going to go back to that investor and find out what that investor allows them to offer you before you actually are given a choice here. And again, you have to apply for it. You have to send in the information. One thing to keep in mind as far as the forbearance is concerned, though, is that normally all of the delinquent amounts that are due from the time that you've been approved for the forbearance and were delinquent beforehand, And throughout the term of the forbearance, usually it's a short term, like 3 to 6 months, possibly a year. But all those delinquent payments, once that forbearance is over, are going to be due and owing. So you either have to be prepared to pay all those delinquent payments up to date and current, or, get further help from your lender to get the loan modified and add all that delinquency back into your mortgage. And if that's not possible, then the alternatives usually are the lender's gonna suggest to you that you may not be able to stay in your home.
You want to remember, it's you. The house is not that important. The house is only a thing. You can live somewhere. If you get, and one reason it's much easier for a housing counselor to deal with these specifics than you is that counselor has no emotional ties to the house. They're only going to look at what is best for you financially and with your budget and lifestyle in mind. And that's real important to keep in mind. We have seen people try to hold on to houses that if they don't lose them today, they're going to lose them in a year or two. And what is the point? If that's what's going to happen, adjust yourself and your life. Get into something that you can afford and hold on to. Don't let a foreclosure be on your record because you just didn't want to think. But before you come up to any answer, do what you can to get yourself moving in the right direction. And then, if you feel that you can't do it anymore, contact the office and you'll sit down with a credit counselor and go through this, and we'll see if there's more that can be done for you.
And one other thing too, Karen, is that so many people come in and the first thing they say is, my lender said I'd be eligible for, blah, 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 blah. And I have no idea what that is. Unfortunately, the mortgage banking industry is full of jargon, and they use specific terms repeatedly, and unless you ask that lender what they actually mean by that terminology, sometimes you are headed off in a different direction than what they're actually proposing for you to take. So, as a counselor, a certified, credit counselor, we understand that terminology. We understand their jargon. We know basically what it means. So we can usually deal a lot more efficiently and effectively with them because we know what they're talking about.
And that's what's really important, to know what you want. We know the bank wants the money or they want the regular payments. We need to know what you, the consumer, want. And do you have the ability to continue to stay in the house? Sometimes this happens in a divorce, where they lose 50% of the income. Then they're sitting there, wait a minute, now what am I going to do? Do I have to take 100% of my income to meet a house payment? What about food? What about gas for the car? What about the car payment? So everything changes. That's when you need to sit down with a counselor and figure out what you're going to do.
And what you had said about what you want, that's another, the client wants. That's another common misconception, is that they'll come in to the office and say, my lender just wants to foreclose. He just wants my house back. And that is so untrue. Normally, because the lender is a servicing agent, the only way they're going to make money is by keeping you in that home as a paying customer. Your mortgage payment's being made. So they're going to do whatever possible to help you in a situation that is like beyond your control, a hardship situation. Now, I don't recommend that anybody that is just tired of making a payment or, wants to get their payment lowered, just, if they have the income to make it, but they want their payments lowered, the lender's probably gonna look at you and say, too bad, so sad. That's not an option. But if you truly have a hardship situation, such as an illness or medical bills, or like Karen said, loss of a job, divorce, they are most often more than willing to work with you. And worst case scenario, if they can't work with you, you still have options. You may not be able to keep your home, but your best alternative is always to try to sell the home yourself.
So
Now-
does that help you with answers to your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You have anything else to add?
If I need some help, then what's my next step if I want some help?
Yes, yes. Just call our office, 234-0661, and ask for appointment to talk to a credit counselor about housing issues.
Okay,
All right, thank you. You have a good day.
all right, thank you very much.
Yep, bye now.
Bye.
Well, that was very interesting, but it's obvious we could have gone on a long time with the housing information.
There
And it is so complicated. I know one of the things every now and then I run into are people that pay extra on their house, because they say they're gonna get it paid off sooner. But then they run late with their credit cards. Well, what do you have? A 6% interest rate on a house and an 18% interest rate on a credit card? You better pay those credit cards off first. And credit cards can be wonderful. They give you a nice history of where you've been, what you've done. But to meet a house payment before a credit card, extra, not the regular, is not the right way to go.
Right, your mortgage is what they call a secured lien. So that lender has the option, if you don't make the payments, of ultimately foreclosing. And they take that property back from you. Eventually, if you go through a foreclosure, you know, I would always recommend that you stay in that property as long as you possibly can, simply for the ability to save as much money as you can, because you're not making mortgage payments. You know, you have to probably keep up the utilities, but you should be able to save some money during that foreclosure process. So
And bank it.
Yeah.
Bank that money.
You've got a little nest egg there.
Otherwise, at the end, people say, well, I know I didn't have to, where is the money? Well, I had other things to pay. No, keep that for your next place. This also gives you a period of time to look for another place,
Yeah,
apartment or a house to rent.
but as I said, you know, I worked in the mortgage banking industry, and eventually they will make you move. I mean,
Yes.
worst case scenario is that they will physically remove your possessions from the house and either store them, or depending on the state regulations,